streaming. Howdy everyone. I already see we got some people on chat. This is a live stream, live rant with Chris over at Legendary Mana. So before we get into the rant, let's just go ahead and have Chris introduce himself, what you do, and if you are interested in subscribing, which you should be, actually I'll introduce Chris first. So how long have I think the first time I met you is you invited me to a kind of a webcast. Is that what they call these things? A podcast with visuals, a webcast.
Yeah, like a vodcast, podcast, whatever. I mean, it's all the same. I mean, we're all just talking into a microphone and saying stuff, right?
So that's the first time, and I thought it went very well. He is very good at keeping the flow of an interview going. I think we had Jeremy on one time, and then I was on again by myself, and we discussed various topics, some community issues. What was the last one we discussed?
Oh man, I think, I can't remember now. So the one I think we talked about, LGSs, are they doomed kind of deal with Iconic Masters being sold in stores, and Unstable was about to release, and that was going into big box stores.
Yep, so I highly suggest you go check those videos out on Legendary Mana channel. The link is in the description of this. It should be. Hopefully, I can't stay on YouTube Live. It never changes the thumbnail, and the description sometimes gets rechanged back over, but it looks like the description didn't. So, yep, there's definitely the link is in the description. So, first of all, let's just check it over here. This is his channel. You've made quite a few bit of videos, but low on the sub list. Chris deserves way more than 541 subs. So do me a favor and subscribe to Chris. You will not be disappointed. These are a lot more quality videos than I put out. I'll just put it out there. And I had a lot of fun. Go watch there's a Jeremy one clear back in the day that we got into some juicy things. This is pre-ban. Clear back in it's been months now since we've done it. And I thought it was a very well done interview. A lot of times I'll get invited to interviews and they'll be just haphazardly put together and not a very good flow. And I thought that one flowed very well. So kudos to Chris for that. So you do a channel kind of like mine, just a variety of things, just whatever kind of floats your boat for the day, whatever you want to just discuss. Correct?
Yeah, a couple of things too is we're aiming now to sort of refine our content a little bit and sort of hone in on some certain subject matters. But I think the fly by the seat of the pants of doing what we want to do at that moment, that'll never go away, just because, well, I mean, everybody likes spontaneity, and I thought I don't know, I had fun doing my rant videos, so that was kind of cool.
Yep. So I guess that brings us into our next segue here with the Energy did get the Banhammer. So I don't know, was there anyone that was actually calling for Energy banned before me? I want to be the hipster of this. So
I think, locally here, I've been hearing it for several months. On YouTube, I know Dev over at Strictly Better MTG. He's been kind of talking about, Energy needs some sort of nerf, but he's the only one other than yourself that I remember hearing anything about. Everybody, somebody wanting an Energy man.
Well, I was pre-calling it before Ixalan even came out, that all these little dinosaurs big dinosaurs were being spoiled, and everyone was hyping them up, Ripjaw Raptor being one of them. And I just looked at him like, what? In what case were you ever going to play? Oh, it was Regisaur Alpha. Everyone was just beside themselves with Regisaur. How Regisaur Alpha is a new broodmate dragon. It's just going to warp standard, blah. And I looked at him like, how in the world is this going to compete with Glorybringer or Bristling Hydra? You can go check those spoilers videos out, and I got a lot of flack for them in that spoiler video. That I didn't know what I was talking about. And sure enough, Energy came out the gates, as well as I did the I Hate Energy video, which got a lot of dislikes for it, with people disagreeing that it was going to warp standard. And lo and behold, it did. So I think that this announcement wasn't too surprising to me. I thought they'd actually go further on Energy. So before we actually, for those of you that need to get caught up, I'll just read through it a little bit here. We have Attune with Aether is banned. We have Rogue Refiner is banned, Rampaging Frostodon, and Ramming Up Ruins. So I wanted Attune with Aether, and I think that I'm okay with Rogue Refiner for energy, but I was surprised to see the Ramen-up targets get hit. I think that Wizards is under the same impression that if energy is gone, then we just still have this boogeyman. It did win a Pro Tour and did very well. Did it win both Pro Tours? What was the Pro Tour? No, it was Sultai that won the other one. So Sultai Energy won a Pro Tour, and then the Ramen-up Ruins was everywhere at the Pro Tour before that, though. So it's definitely crowded the space for other linear aggro-based strategies are basically impossible to build right now because A, they're getting hated out because of all the people that are running Ramen-up, and B, Ramen-up just does a better job at it. So basically, they provided a lot of statistics that were very interesting for this, where they showed the win percentages for the energy pre-sideboard versus post-sideboard. This is what everyone was complaining about, is post-sideboard energy could turn into basically a different deck. They could play the aggro, mid-range, or control route depending on their sideboard. So it gave them a lot of flexibility. And then we kind of see the same thing with Ramen-up, except that Ramen-up just had an insanely good game one against a lot of decks. So a 70% win percentage versus a lot of these, tier 2, tier 3 decks was really phenomenal. And even if you hated them out, you're only giving yourself a better odds by about 10% at the highest. So neither one of them had any bad matchups. So I guess we can talk about that starting off. Do you have any thoughts, first of all, on I'll just let you have your little spiel, and then I'll criticize you. How about that?
Sounds great. Well, here's the thing, right? Like, I look at, I'm constantly in the competitive scene right now. I'm doing, playing, not Pro Tours, Grand Prix, PPTQs, as well as stuff online. And I'm really engulfed into the competitive scene. And I'll tell you what, energy is definitely, it's a problem because, it does take up a lot of the meta. And in many different variants. So I think, although I disagree with the ban of a tune, I understand the reasons behind it. And I guess to bring energy down a notch and actually make it to be more of a, I would say, quote unquote, fair deck, I think a tune had to be, it had to be banned. Rogue Refiner, I'm a little on the fence on that. Yes, it gives you energy and a card, but I think Bristling Hydra is more of a monster in the energy scene than Rogue Refiner is, because Bristling Hydra comes in and you can immediately make it a 5/4 if you need to with hexproof. So immediately it hits the floor and it could be a 5/4. More energy that you get, you can make it a 6/5, so on and so forth. It gets pretty hard to deal with. Whereas with Rogue Refiner being a 3/2, there's about anything that can deal with it. So that's where I think, I don't know, I was kind of on fence with Rogue Refiner. I much rather saw Bristling Hydra as the other banned energy card. As far as red goes, you're right. I mean, like, it really dominated Pro Tours. I think Ramen-up Ruins really activated some ferociousness that red ended up getting near the second phase of red when Ixalan came out. Or excuse me, when Our Devastation came out. And Rampaging Ferocidon just literally just took that deck to the next step when Ixalan came out, right? I think so. Rampaging Ferocidon, I am surprised at the ban because it's easy to deal with, but I can get why people could get behind the ban of the Ferocidon. Ruins, I felt like it was a big enabler for the red deck to actually do something, and with Temur in the meta, with Temur now being nerfed quite a bit, I would feel that Ramen-up Ruins would really take over being the force in red. I mean, like, at that point, it's basically Desert Red at that point. Trevor Van Cleave was playing Desert Red at one of the Pro Tours, and I think, it's a good deck. and it could really take over things if there's nothing there to check it.
Yeah. So those are pretty fair assessments. So first of all, I think the more and more I think about this, at first, the kind of my knee-jerk reaction to this was I was upset with how many were banned, especially the red, because I didn't think the numbers were there for Ramanup. I think that Ramanup was easily hated out, even with Rampaging Ferocidon. Now, personally, I can't stand playing against the card. It tends to be how I brew decks. Rampaging Ferocidon just absolutely punishes me. It was the one card, and in fact, usually they had to have multiples of them that would get me when I played the Marinette Master combo deck. It was really tough to beat Rampaging Ferocidon. And it never really went above 25% of the meta. I think even at its peak, there wasn't, it didn't dominate. But the more I think about it, well, first of all, before I discuss where I think their ban theory should change, or at least the way that they communicate with the community should definitely change. Attune with Aether, I think, was definitely the right ban, and Rogue Refiner would be, in my opinion, the second best ban, because it just does too much. It feels like a push card. Draw a card, 3/2, 2 energy. That is incredibly strong of a card, and those are the type of cards that I like to ban. So if we actually look at some of the more oppressive standards in the past, it's never really the finishers or the rares or the big beefy creatures that are a problem. It's always the enablers. So if we look at some of my most miserable standards that I ever played in, Mono Black Devotion, it was definitely Thoughtseize or Mutavault, which were the problem cards. Even though they're kind of innocuous by themselves, they were the ones that were setting up these Desecration Demons and Pack Rats to have no ways to deal with them, and then they just take over the game. Or, proactively rip out that Supreme Verdict. Oh, now I can go crazy with the Pack Rat. Oh, there's no Detention Sphere, no, yep, let's do it. So it just made that deck incredibly oppressive. If we go back to Delver, it's quite funny because when Ponder and Preordain rotated, the deck ceased to exist. Because the enabler to Delver, even though they're still running the exact same amount of spell count, and yes, those blind flips on the Delver were quite obnoxious when they go first turn Delver, second turn flip. It was the consistency of Ponder and Preordain that was making Delver that big of a boogeyman deck. And then after rotation, went away. Another very good example is Mardu Vehicles. Mardu Vehicles, this little tiny thing called Thraben Inspector rotated, deck doesn't even work anymore. And we could argue that Gideon was a big part of it, and I could actually argue that Gideon actually wasn't that big part of it. It was all Thraben Inspector being able to enable, have another artifact on board, and that just consistency, which was pushing Mardu Vehicles from a tier 2 deck to a Boogeyman tier 1 deck. And I think that this has been quite consistent throughout Standard. You can always say there's a common or uncommon, an enabler, a value card that is typically the problem card. So Attune, I've spoke about this in other videos, Attune was a card that allowed them to go 4 colors quite easily. It allowed your Aether Hubs to not be risky at all. You could use Aether Hub mana to your heart's desire because you could just refill up with either a Rogue Refiner or Attune with Aether. It allowed the Long Tusk Hub and the Glint Sleeve Siphoner to have a whole different power level. And yeah, just all of the consistency parts of that you can see that I think just without Attune, energy would have been nerfed to where it needed to be. Rogue Refiner, I guess, is okay, other than I think that that punished more of the blue-green energy, which is maybe where they needed to be with Rogue Refiner. But even Rogue Refiner without the energy would have been a pretty nutty card. A 3/2 for 3 mana that drew a card. That's a pretty powerful card. That's on the verge of modern playability. I'm surprised that some of these human decks haven't just chucked in Rogue Refiner at this point, even though they don't even use energy. Now, the red is something that I personally wouldn't have. I don't think I liked Ramanup Ruins as a target. I think they should have started with just the other kind of vanilla desert that just does a damage when it comes into play, and because it would give you less desert targets to then just throw at your opponent. And that might have been enough there. And the Rampaging Ferocidon is an interesting card, but it'll all come down to consistency, what they want to do in the future. It definitely was too pushed. I've been saying that about Rampaging Ferocidon since the very beginning. Menace, 3/3 undercost, can't gain life, and 1 damage. I mean, Jesus, might as well give it first strike. You might as well, throw something else on top of that. It was just too pushed for 1 card. They should have split those abilities up into 2 different red cards instead of just put it on 1 and called it good. So that's basically my analysis of the ban list. I wish for good measure they would have just banned Approach the Second Sons or Torrential Gearhulk if they really wanted a new standard, because I'm thinking we're into that crap now. We're just going to you just got rid of Control's best two match or worst two matchups. And if they really want those vampire go wide strategies to happen, good luck. Good luck with that.
Yeah, and that's where you know, that's where, man, and I've been talking about this for a while now. And well, first, actually, to comment back on your uncommon cards that were banned, you know, we can look back to Reflector Mage. Although I didn't agree with the ban. I guess it kind of made sense at the time it happened, but anyways, Approach is just got a lot stronger, plain and simple. There's going to be basically, I mean, it's going to be really hard for, I think, aggro to really get there, because control matchups are just going to get bigger. God Gifts, Pharaoh Gifts, God Gifts, Pharaoh decks, Approach, and then what is it, blue-black control?
Yeah, see, blue-black control is what I'm most worried about, because both Approach and God Pharaoh's gift decks can be shut down. It'll just push people into having to play cards you'd rather not in your sideboard. Like, I'm not a fan of sometimes of running either one-trick ponies or things that, or having to run cards that effectively get rid of the one-trick ponies. My biggest beef with Modern is that format is riddled with that nonsense. I talk about how I've rage quit many times Modern, but the last time that I rage quit Modern was my last league that I went 3-2. I didn't lose. Like, that's what I'm saying. It was a winning record. I still went out on that, but played Storm, and Goryo's Vengeance. And every game was, well, actually, I think it was Through the Breach was the last one, but same thing as Goryo's Vengeance. Every game was decided whether or not I hit a hate card or not. So the 2-2 with Storm was, did Rest in Peace's land or not? With the Through the Breach, I was able to basically kill them really early with just a bunch of 1/1s. It wasn't even like this phenomenal draw. It was just they didn't have the cards they needed in their hand, and I beat them down with a bunch of 1/1s that got pumped up by an Anthem. And then the game 3, I hit a Howled Moonlight, and he scooped. So it was like all of these games went on to turn 2 or turn 3 just because I had a Rest in Peace or a Howled Moonlight. And I think that's the kind of the same thing with like God Pharaoh's Gift and Approach the Second Sons, is now we do have the appropriate hate cards to hate them out, but it's still so annoying. There are many games when I used to play against Torrential Gearhulk that I go turn 3 Dispossess, and my opponent would go Scoop. I'm like, oh, that was fun. We just played a whole 3 turns of magic. So I don't like it when they push control to the point where it only has one finisher. And yes, you can make the argument, well, that's their own damn fault for only putting one finisher in. But that's kind of the how these Approach decks have kind of morphed into. So anyway, yeah, I think but blue-black though with Scarab Gob and Torrential Gearhulk. And sometimes they can throw in a few other little win cons. I think there's one right now that runs like a hostage taker or two as well. I mean, that can get like those decks. I think they just lost the Ramanup matchup, which actually even packing in 4 Vraska's Contempts was not enough, and 4 Fatal Pushes. And also, Temur Energy was just miserable. And one of the reasons why Temur Energy was so miserable to face was because of Rogue Refiner. It did everything. No. It replenished their resources. It drew them a card, and it put out a 3-2 beater. So, yeah, I'm kind of worried for if they wanted Rivals of Ixalan to shine. I don't think they went far enough on the ban list, to be honest. So, let's just talk about the. I guess first I'm going to ask you, what's your perspective of how they handle ban lists, and then I'll interject with mine. So,
well, I think they're.
Oh, I appreciate the donation, by the way, Miss Luath.
Oh, nice.
Well,
nice.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I guess I have a couple of perspectives on that. As somebody who's a, competitive player, you never know when or trying to be a competitive player, I should say. You never know when a ban's going to come down, which then really makes things, I don't know, it makes it really tough to really think about things. You know, for instance, thankfully, this coming weekend is team limited and not a standard GP. If this was a standard GP going into Indy, boy, this would really suck. So I think the timing sometimes that they're doing these bans, I think, is too soon. I think they need time to basically see how the meta shakes and then make a decision, as opposed to making a decision before they have time to see how the meta is going to shake out, right? I think that's one of my first gripes. And I think then my second gripe, which, you know, stems off my first one, is the fact that ban the right cards, because I still don't know if they hit all the cards that should have been banned in this ban sort of cycle for standard. Much like when, you know, the Marvel ban happened, where they, you know, first they banned Emrakul. You know, Emrakul was the problem, and Emrakul wasn't the problem. It was Marvel was the problem, right? So I think, although I think they're trying to get better at it, they certainly didn't show this time around that they fully honed in on the right balance or way to do a banning. Did that answer your question?
Well, let me even go back now that you mentioned that. So we have Marvel and Emrakul that were banned, basically all, and I would even put Saheeli. This is a video I just never got to. It was just kind of a weird, I wanted to make a high production video. I always joke when I say I wanted to, because, you know, actually going and doing the groundwork for those times, getting myself motivated is another whole, you know, bag of cats here. So, but anyways, I was going to try to pose the question, would we even need to ban Saheeli combo if a tune didn't exist? Would we have needed to ban Emrakul if a tune didn't exist? Would we even need to have banned the Aetherworks Marvel if a tune would not have existed? It seems to me that a tune has been the problem all along. Would Marvel have banned that turn 4 deck without a tune? It was really, yeah, I don't think you could get a turn 4 without a tune. Would Saheeli been able to play 4 colors? Because I remember when Saheeli first came out, I was pissed. Like, or Felidar Guardian, because like, how did Wizards not catch that? And of course, I have this player, he no longer plays here anymore, but I used to have this really spiky player that no matter what, would always try to play the most broken things possible. And so I think Ad Nauseam's the go-to deck that likes to play, and, you know, likes these things that your opponent can't interact with, they just win on the spot. Little decision to be made, just go for it. So when Felidar, of course, he got a huge boner over it, that he was able to have this infinite combo in standard, Splinter Twin in standard, blah blah blah, and so he tried it, and a lot of other people tried it. I remember that first Star City Opens had I think it was the number 1 played deck was the Saheeli combo, and then it didn't even do anything, I believe, at the Pro Tour. Or because people hadn't figured out the shell that it should be in. It wasn't until after that when people were like, wow, this should actually go into energy, and we should just start flickering Rogue Refiner and Oath of Nissa and things like that too. But it was the duo of Oath of Nissa and Attune with Aether. They ran like an 18 land count that allowed it to be the 2-color deck, which was the 4-color deck. And same thing with Marvel. Emrakul, I think, did need banned because it was if people remember it, the Marvel deck wasn't, the Delirium deck was just as bad. They were both oppressive. They were both getting out Emrakul turn 5, turn 6. So
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I played Black Green Delirium. You rarely saw it come out before turn 8.
Did it win the Pro Tour Team Merge?
Or
did it not win that one? Oh, actually, no. Gideon won that.
No,
didn't it?
I think Gideon won that one. Yeah.
No,
I don't think. Well, I'll have to look.
Yeah, I'll have to look too, because it's the Delirium. I know that Team Merge was the big breakout deck, and then there was a lot of this was that even before rotation? Yeah, I think that was before the other rotation. I mean, or before Kaladesh was quite in. Yeah. When it was a thing. But anyway, I digress with that. But yeah, there's been some problem cards with going on for a long time now. Emrakul they misevaluated Emrakul and really wanted to push it. They misevaluated the energy mechanic, which is what I bitched about in my video, that, okay, energy would have been fine. In Dice Masters, they actually have a mechanic energy. It works very similar to how energy works in Magic. And they have a card in Dice Masters called Elf Thief that takes an energy from your opponent and gives it to yourself. So if they would have just printed something like that, or a burn spell that would have said deal damage to target opponent equal to the amount of energy in their energy reserve. Something that to punish energy decks, which Mark Rosewater just dug his heels in and said, no. I guess there was plannings for that kind of stuff. I can't confirm it, but that's the rumors I've heard, is that a lot of people did say, well, Mark, let's do some stuff about energy. And he's like, no, I don't want the energy reserve to be interacted with or punished. I want it just something you build up and you can use later. And we saw that's just a huge problem with these cards, especially when you attach it to something that goes and grabs a land, or attach it to something that goes and gets a card and is a 3/2. So, I mean, even look now, is that 2/1? It adds 3 mana actually playable now. That's the thing. If people still want to enable energy, I think it's still there. So, anyway.
Well, you know, I mean, I look at, so I play 4-color energy, and that's what I've been playing for a while.
You monster.
But I play more black than I do green. So I don't play Bristling Hydra because I just don't like the card. So I play basically Gonti. I play the Gonti version basically. And so for me, like, losing Rogue Refiner and Attune, I really actually don't care, because I think
you will, though. I'll play it again, and it's going to be Delver without Ponder. I'm sure you're going to find this out the hard way. I think that the archetype's dead. I think that if people are going to go in energy, it's going to be Grixis now. I don't think there's any point for green.
Well, I've been looking at Search and Long Tusk Cub to get the energy, and Voltaic Brawler. I mean, so those are some cards that I've been looking at for the 4-color version. And then main boarding Death Gorge Scavenger. So then maybe looking at, replacing Attune with, say, Commune of the Dinos,
What about Double Door Explorer? I think that's a better slot for Rogue Refiner.
That's an idea. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at so many different things right now. Ever since this came out, I've been scrambling around all day, just like looking at this. And I don't think 4-color's dead, but I think it's going to be more aggro than mid-rangey. But that's just my opinion. And I think Search is going to be a part. Has to be a part of it.
You'll have to pick that's the whole thing with Teamer. They're not going to have as flexible of a sideboard anymore, and they're going to have to pick a strategy. They can't do all 3, which is exactly where I want them to be with it. I'm with you, though. So I think that Raminup's actually the deck that gets punished the most. I think they can't. I think going mono red might be a little bit harder for them to justify. A lot of these decks have already sort of morphed over to like a red white or a red black. Throwing back either Scrap Heap Scrounger or getting in. A lot of them were even liking like Servo Exhibition or Legion's Landing. It gave them that more late game power. So there's some interesting things with that I think that Brewers can innovate. But I'm hoping it actually leads to a more diverse standard. I fear that it doesn't. I guess we got off topic with that. With the whole point of this whole video, I guess, is me, like, where I'm under the impression I actually would prefer more bannings. And I know I'm the minority of the minority of the minority of people here. I want more bannings in Modern. I want more bannings in Standard. I want more bannings in Commander. Good God, they need way more bannings in Commander. That format is just pathetic. Pauper's in an okay place at the moment. I don't play a lot of Pauper, so I don't think I'm the right person to speak on it. But the whole problem where everyone has been so upset, me included, is it just seems like there's just lack of communication between Wizards. We don't have a watch list. I think a watch list, this data right here, this should have been public knowledge. And the fact that they actively hide this is I mean, this is troubling. One of the problems that I've been hearing too about Teamer, if you heard this too in your own little playgroups, how everyone's deck beats Teamer Energy. Do you get that at all? Everyone you talk to?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I've actually heard
I
it.
swear
No.
to God that everyone I
No.
talk to, every brew that they come up with, Approach the Second Sons, Black Blue Control, all of the God Pharaoh's gift decks, all of these my matchup's really good against a Teamer. I've got a great matchup against Teamer. Like I hear that across the board, everyone just completely. I've got a great Teamer energy, and if they would have just given us the stats, this is something you'd be like, oh really? And I think that's the problem, is this is anecdotal evidence that everyone is like, my deck's good versus Teamer, so let's just keep playing it, derpa, derpa, derpa. And then, of course, it doesn't do well, and then they just chalk it up like, okay, maybe I had a bad showing of it this time. Obviously, it does not do well against Teamer. This should have been something that they would have been actively showing us. Goldfish used to provide this data for us until Wizards threatened them with the Black Death if they continued to post statistics. And who was it before that? There was another website before that. Star City Games was posting statistics before that they threatened them with. And people could have adjusted and said, okay, well, my matchup really isn't good. I think what it's caused is almost like a reverse net deck effect. It's like, well, okay, Teamer is this big bad, oh, well, this deck's actually good against it, but there's no way of actually telling if it's good against it because there's no information out there. And or I think that they're only showing 5-0 finishes has also kind of backfired because it gives you like a picture that Standard is diverse when it's really not. That's been my biggest beef when they created that stupid only 5 finishes, is it didn't change anything. It just made it seem like there was something else going on. And
but at the same, oh, sorry.
Go for it. No, yeah, you finish your thought there.
But at the same time, they don't show all the 5-0 finishes either.
No, there we go. They should show anything that has 10 different cards. I was very upset when one of my brews didn't get posted on there as a 5-0.
Yeah. I've had a couple of ones. I've had a couple of 5-0s that never showed.
Yeah. Yeah. There's the funny, the day that I 5-0'd too, there was 3 Teamer energies that just happened to have I think, what is the criteria? It's like 5 different cards? And that's insanely easy with Teamer.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't even think there should be a criteria. It should just be like, if a deck does well, it should be posted. I mean, like,
well, it's just laziness. Don't they have a guy that's over this? Shouldn't they be picking it out? Like, oh, cool, this deck 5-0, let's showcase this, and compiling that. Obviously, it's done by a robot that just gathers the data and throws it out. So,
I mean, I would almost think I'd be more in favor of cut out the decks that are similar to what's in the top meta and just post what's not in the meta. I mean, why don't you just do that instead?
Still, I'd prefer the stats so that we can be informed of exactly.
Sure.
Because this is funny. They were hiding information, and we still had about a 70% meta share of Ramenup and Teamer, just with what the information we had. What was the real statistic? That would be fun, because there was so many of those when I was trying to grind for that 5-0 finish with Marinette Master. There were so many of those leagues where I would not see another deck besides Ramenup or Teamer, and it would just be all Teamer, and I'd lose inevitably to one of them. Like I have a god-forsaken amount of 4-1 finishes in in the leagues that I did, and it was all because one of the Teamers eventually would have that stupid nutty, turn 1 Attune, turn 2 Long Tusk Cub, turn 3 Rogue Refiner, turn 4 Chandra, turn 5 Glorybringer, type draw that's really, really tough for any deck to beat. But yeah.
But what's funny is right before GP Portland, my prep for that, and I probably put in over about 100 matches on MTGO before going to GP Portland, like the month leading into it. And I'll tell you this, like I would say about 80% of my matchups were gifts and 4-color and approach. That was the majority of what I played against. So I primarily built my sideboard for those matchups. I'm like, okay, everybody's testing this and everybody's doing this right before Portland. So I'm just like, okay, well, then I think maybe Teamer's not going to have a big showing. And then sure as anything, I show up and probably 60% of the field was Teamer.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
I don't know.
So going forward, like that's, again, going back to my position, I'm okay with less bans. I'm okay with more bans. Like all in all, I just wish that Wizards would be a lot more transparent with the direction that they're going to go, so it gives us a heads up. the market, this one is, I know I'm going to have some people in the finance community that are very upset. I almost pulled the trigger on Rampaging Frostodon, because I did not see that one getting banned, and it looked like a pretty good card post rotation in a dinosaur build. I think it's actually one of the key cards to stop Merfolk or stop vampires from just flooding out the board, because dinosaurs don't really have a lot of. They've tried. They gave a green white one, and they gave a mono white one, which you have City's Blessing because of 3/3. But both of those are very awkward if you're going to be going into like a red-green later strategy. And Rampaging Frostodon was a good way to punish the go wide of vampires or merfolk or even pirates at that point. And I think they lose a key card for that. But a lot of people, I think, just probably got blindsided because there wasn't a lot of discussion at all about Rampaging Frostodon, at least from Wizards being silent. And now we're going to have a lot of upset people with their playsets that are now worthless. So,
yeah, and that's funny too, because any of the conversations that I had with people or creators or people who do writing for brewing and stuff like that, like never once have I ever heard that Rampaging Frostodon should be banned. Like,
yeah,
and I didn't even think of it either, and I'm just like, okay, that's kind of interesting.
I definitely did like their analysis on it, and again, I'm okay with this because Rampaging Frostodon seems to be another Smuggler's Copter. We discussed it earlier. It just has too much things. It was pushed. They could have made it a 2/1. They could, or a 3/2 even. Dies to Shock would have been a lot easier to deal with than you have to use a Vraska's Contempt or an Essex Extraction. Like, it even dodges the new -2/-2 gain 2 life card. That's the problem with dodges also the new -2/-2 doll creatures, for example. So it was just
moment of craving,
just too pushed for Rampaging Frostodon, and so that brings you back to another thought. Is this going forward? Is Wizards, is this what you're going to do if you make a problem? If you accidentally push a card too much, are you going to ban it, or are we going to get stuck with Gideon's? Because I would even argue that Gideon was a big problem in Standard for its entire 2-year life that it was out. There was only like one pro tour without Gideon in the top 8 during its entire life, which was the last one. So maybe it was the last 2 didn't have Gideon, but up until that point, there was a Gideon in every top 8, at least somewhere. And there's been an example of this. So, okay. So what is your overall goal, Wizards? Is this your overall goal? Because we went through ban 4 cards, or was it ban 3 cards, and then they banned one later on, Felidar Guardian, yeah, to nothing on the last one, which wasn't very diverse format, right? Because after the bannings, didn't we just have Mardu vehicles versus... Now, it's funny, it was just not that long ago. What was before rotation? What was the big boogeyman deck? Was it still vehicles?
So Mardu, oh man.
No,
I gotta pull these up.
Was it red blue control? Was red blue control the one that just got out of hand at the end there?
Oh yeah. With that enchantment. What was the name of that dang enchantment?
Fevered
I can't
Visions
remember. Fevered Visions. Yeah, the Fevered Visions deck. That was like...
Well, they had in the
that's even go further back.
Sideboard? Well, I don't think that ever became like a tier 1, but it was Torrential Gearhulk and the Wandering Fumarole. And speaking of which, that's what killed red-blue, is when Wandering Fumarole rotated, it took away one of their win cons, so the deck kind of fell on its head. But yeah, why can't I think of even Standard that? Was it that stale? It had to have been that stale, because I can't even remember, because I didn't like it. I know everyone was... Pre-rotation, someone in the chat, let me know what the meta was like, because I remember no one was playing Standard.
I'm looking at Standard.
So pre-Zen.
Yeah. So Zen through Amonkhet.
Yeah.
So Mardu
Ramanup was huge. I know Ramanup was absolutely huge.
Mardu, Golgari, Aggro, Temur, Azorius.
Yeah, Temur was already starting to get out of control at that point too, I believe.
Copycat, Marvelous Energy. Oh, Marvel, Marvel, but
Marvelous Energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they said Glorybringer. That's right, because his energy was still there, but it was being kept in check by blue-red, I believe. I think that was the big.
Then there was blue-red Eldrazi. That doesn't make sense.
Wasn't very big. There was blue-red control. I know that one was a thing. Whiny Constrictor decks were being held in check by Mardu. That was a matchup they just couldn't win. And then there was a couple blue-red Elder Deep Fiend decks as well that tried to get back the prized amalgams. But
Zombies was there for a bit.
Zombies and Ramen Up, those were the big ones. Zombies, Ramen Up, and Mardu vehicles. So I mean, you could make. But does everyone remember that fondly? Because I remember it was pretty much solved as well. That Ramen Up. I know Ramen Up was what 7 out of 8 of the top 8 of the Pro Tour, and it never really went away even after the Pro Tour. It just kept. It's funny. I can't even remember. I can't even remember Standard at this point. Because it just seems like more of the same. And we had because after rotation there wasn't really any new innovation. It was still Ramen Up because people were talking about how Ramen Up was gone without the 1-drop vampire, the 2/1 that came out. The 2/1 gave all other vampires the madness, and they're like, oh, we don't have another slot there. They dropped another 2-drop as well. They thought was going to hurt it more than it did.
Okay, so Pro Tour Hour Devastation, that was the Ramen Up Red.
Yeah, the 7 out of 8, right? In the top 8?
Yeah. Yep, so it was Red Constrictor, Red Zombies, Red Rakdos Aggro, Red.
So, and then afterwards, I can't remember what the meta was like. I know I didn't play a lot of Standard, though, because it was quite stale. I know that they would have a few weeks where Zombies would come back on top and then go away, and then... but I believe it was Teamer was already starting to pull ahead before rotation, and everyone was like, oh god, we can't wait for rotation. And I don't think that anything really rotated, because I remember I did a video on it saying that nothing rotates. It's completely they lost like 1 or 2 cards. They lost like a land was all. They lost like the check land. And yeah, so
I'm looking at the Moxes for the next one. Yeah, so Moxes like 3 weeks later, not even 3 weeks later, Teamer Energy topped it. So it was Teamer, Black White Zombies, Teamer, Golgari Constrictor, Is It Tower, Black Aggro, and Black Zombies. I mean, Teamer was already starting to hit probably 3 weeks after that.
Yeah, and it had been pretty stale. I think even before that, even with Amonkhet release, I think the meta was quite similar. I know that the Hour Devastation added a little more oomph to a couple decks because we got some neat tricks, but I think it was already starting to take off. Even A3 Volt onwards was really dominated by energy moving forward. So anyway, what I was trying to with this is that so they let it go on for this long. There wasn't bannings in this time period, which you can arguably say that the meta wasn't that great. I mean, is there really a difference between 2 and 5 decks? Is that really that much better of a diverse format?
I don't think so.
I mean, once you're up to 20% of a share, isn't it pretty stale every 5 matchups to be going against the same deck?
Yeah. Okay, here we go. So real quick, Pro Tour Amonkhet. This is even more telling. So Mono Black Zombies, Marvelous Teamer, Golgari Energy, Marvelous Teamer, Zombies.
So what was Marvelous Teamer? Pull one of those up. Is it just Teamer Energy?
Yeah, with Elder Teamer Energy with running
Elder Deep Fiend, right? That was there. They killed
Umlog. These ones were running Umlog
so they
with Close Electric Turn.
Huh?
Yeah.
Why can't I remember that deck? I probably should. So, yeah.
I mean, Hazelworks Marvel. I mean, it was a beast for a while.
Is it the one? Did they have Chandra in that list? The big Chandra?
No. Nope. It was 4 Refiner. So like Watanabe's was 4 Refiner, Gear Hulk, 3 Umlogs, 2 Whirlers, and then a Tune.
Yep.
I mean,
they banned Marveled, and then they just played the deck without it. Is what it ended up being.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fun. So I guess that's a. To be fair, I guess Rogue Refiner's been this big of a problem. Like the Whirler Virtuoso Rogue Refiner Attune combo has been enabling. I mean, that is just too much of a wall to break through, too much value for every deck. So anyway, that would have been nice back then if they start saying, hey, we're keeping an eye on this. We're keeping an eye on this. Let's do something about it. So I guess where are you with all this? Are you for more bannings, less bannings? What's your ideal standard look like?
I think more bannings on the side of we're making the right choice versus just making a choice to make one.
Do you have any faith in the new test group that is coming out?
I'm only biased because I know two people that are part of that group. So kind of yes, because I have faith in them. But I don't know if I have faith in the Wizards process. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, that's been what I've been hearing too. Is that it's not like they've just let Mark Rosewater off without anyone, criticizing some of his design flaws. I hear that it's you're allowed to, and then it just doesn't matter. So they just push it anyway. Because I think that a lot of the last sets people have said, "Hey, let's tone this down," and then it's like, no. We need our new set to sell. We need our new cards. It causes this. I think that's been a problem with Magic, and just a lot of spike mentality in general. Is people just want overpowered cards. I think that it sells sets a lot of times when there are like Kaladesh being so powerful compared to the more recent sets that have been put out that it just sold like crazy. But then what that ends up happening is it makes Amonkhet look like the biggest joke of a set ever.
Yeah, yeah. But I think there's a balance though, right? And this is where I think the design team has to figure it out. There's a balance between creating powerful cards and powerful cards that can be used everywhere. For instance, Attune with Aether, right? I think, same thing was like Aether Hub. A lot of people were complaining about, Aether Hub should be banned. Well, I don't know. I guess it could have been, but that's those are cards that could be applied everywhere. So if it's a powerful mechanic that can be used in many, many different instances, then I think that's where it becomes too overpowered.
Yep. Or when they don't put enough, I know that Kaladesh, one of the problems with Kaladesh is they didn't add enough ways to deal with artifacts. Because they wanted to spotlight them. A lot of, which is funny because that was not the Theros. They kind of complained that there's too many ways to deal with enchantments, and that's why none of it really shined, is because it just got, Abrupt Decay was still in the format too, when, Detention Sphere, things that could still deal with indestructible enchantments or just enchantments in general, they were still getting kind of the collateral damage from those type of cards that solved. So I think with Kaladesh, with both of the mechanics, they just did a terrible, terrible job putting the things that kept them in check. And the next set is supposed to have ways to deal with the previous set. That's how they've done it in the past. Like Rest in Peace came in, I believe, Return to Ravnica to specifically combat all of the mechanics, the graveyard mechanics from Innistrad. And Innistrad gave us Stony Silence, which was specifically supposed to combat against all the mechanics from Scars and Mirrodin, and so on and so forth. And I think they dropped the ball with Amonkhet especially to really keep Kaladesh in check. So I guess that's
they should have really
on here on the list. That's what they kind of said about Rampaging Ferocidon, that they created it to combat Saheeli combo, which then ended up getting banned. So
right,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think about bannings as a way to help control the meta. And I think bannings are fine when they're needed to be done. But I think at the same time, I think the play design and the development team need to work closer together to make things that are... The game needs to be balanced. I think of, you make a video game, and there's always going to be things that people find, loopholes for certain things, but they fix them, right? So that's like our form of banning, is they fix things, we ban things, and but they have a very extensive testing process, and a majority of those problems they find, right? And I think I don't have any faith in Wizards to do that well enough before they have to release a set, because I think they're just pushing out stuff to make sets sell, as you say.
Yeah, and I think it's even with a development team, they can siphon off all the pro players, and I don't think that they'll be able to. MTGO, I think, defines the meta more than pros do. Well, I mean, there have been some innovations at Pro Tours, but the majority of decks that we see at Pro Tours, we already saw And like people keep talking about, oh, this Pro Tour, there's some huge. No, it was on MTGO 2 weeks prior. When people talked about Eldrazi Winter, no, those decks were definitely on MTGO 2 weeks prior. Same thing with the like Ramming Up Red was everywhere already on MTGO. Going even clear back to Mono Black Devotion, that we started to see a lot of, even though it was a breakout deck, not at the Pro Tour, but a couple weeks later, we had already seen that week 1 on MTGO. And so that's the big, and they obviously acknowledge that. That's why they hide the data on MTGO. But I think that, like I said, they could get the entire pro circuit to try to figure out this metagame, and MTGO is going to break it way quicker and a lot more efficient. And so I'm with you. The only way to correct the game is ban lists. And I think that we as a community have to just bite that bullet. I'm a Dota player. I used to be a StarCraft player before this. And that, people would always, one of the ones that I always find hilarious is there was a character in Dota called Lena. And Lena was just out of control. And so they had to do something about Lena. And of course she got nerfed. And oh my God, the forums just exploded with people quitting the game. They're done. If you just ban their character, and now it's just going to all be Wind Ranger. Wind Ranger's just going to win everything because Wind Ranger's biggest counter has now been nerfed into unplayability. And now Leshrac and Wind Ranger are going to be the new meta and blah, blah. And all these people were quitting the game. We're never playing again. Blah, 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 blah. And when Lena got nerfed, it was a very healthy meta. Wind Ranger didn't do anything. Leshrac didn't do anything, and they just have to tweak it every now and again. And sometimes Dota will just tweak things. They'll specifically make a character like, oh, this character is doing terrible. Let's make sure that it sees some play for a while. But they can always just go in there and fix it. They can tweak a thing here and there. And I've actually been impressed. That's what I like when I talk about Attune and maybe like was it called Scorching Ruins, or what's the one that comes out and does 1 damage to a player. Let's just pull up Ramming Up here. If they would have started with this Sunscorched Desert, that's what it's called. Sunscorched Desert, ban that. Maybe that would be enough to make it so Ramming Up's not that great of a... If Ramming Up has to kill itself, is it going to be enough? Like, are they going to have enough resources at that point? I mean, it gets in for just one-time use. Will that be enough? But anyway, what I used to be really impressed with, like StarCraft versus World of Warcraft, like World of Warcraft was notorious for throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like they would, when they did a bannings or a nerfings, they just completely went overboard, and it caused these huge vacuums to occur in the arena circuit. So, but StarCraft, they used to do like little minor things, like a point of armor here, a damage here, and it would actually be surprising at how much that, like if you look at the back over here to the win percentages, these aren't phenomenal. 52%, 55.7. Is that Attune? Is that going to be that 5% difference? And rather than just completely killing something, they can start off small. So that's where I wish that Wizards would take that direction, that we're going to do more bannings, but we're going to try not to do significant cards. We're going to try the Felidar Guardians, the Reflector Mages, the Attunes, the commons and these uncommons that by themselves aren't that impressive. It's when they get put into a package that they become just too overbearing. So I guess that's my response to your Bristling Hydra. I definitely think Bristling Hydra would be the wrong card, because it's still easy to chump block. It still requires energy. Even though it produces it, still requires it. And it definitely does feel pushed, does feel annoying, does make Ripjaw Raptor look like a little lizard right now rather than a ferocious dinosaur compared to this, energy beast. But yeah, all in all, I kind of like the move if they stay consistent. So that going forward, are we just going to go back to, oh, we did a banning, so we're not going to do another one for 2 years again, and then have a miserable standard? Well, here's my thing. What if, are they going to ban something if black-blue control becomes this dominant? Will they look back and say, you know what? We need to get rid of this Torrential Gearhulk. It's just talk about a push card. It's the biggest Gearhulk happens to have the best ability with flash on a blue creature. That didn't ring any warning bells to Wizards?
Well, I think it's played less now. I mean, it's played a lot less. It's mainly played in sideboards, isn't it?
Torrential Gearhulk? No, it's still defining of the deck. If we actually look at the meta right now, I think they've taken out the energy, so they've wiped it clean. Black Blue Control is the #1 deck. There's not any information, but 3 Torrential Gearhooks, 2 Scarab Gods. And it was is usually a 4-of package in Torrential Gearhook when it was part of the red-blue control. Usually when people build around Torrential Gearhook, it's approach not so much. Sometimes they put 1-ofs in approaches because a lot of approach didn't have targets for it either. A lot of that was sorcery speed stuff. Whereas
that's what
Black
I was thinking
Blue
of.
is all instances. You get Contempt, you get even like the Hieroglyphic Illumination type cards.
And white blue cyclers that comes out in the sideboard too.
Yeah.
Meaning for Gearhulk. So yeah, blue black control. I guess you're right. That's the one that hits with 3 of them.
But I mean, just for the sake of the argument, though, what happens if this becomes the #1 deck? Are they ready to pull the trigger on Torrential Gearhulk?
The question is would Torrential Gearhulk be the problem of that deck?
Yeah, I know. Well, are they ready to prepare? Are they ready to pull the trigger in a month though, or whenever the next banning is? I think it is in a month, right? Isn't a month after the Pro Tour they do another one?
Yes, I think it's
or 2 weeks after, or something like that. They reevaluate.
I think it's like 2 or 3 weeks after. I have to look at the ban thing, but it's something like that. Is right after the Pro Tour, like 3 weeks later is when they'll do another one.
So, I mean, that's kind of the slippery, well, not the slippery slope, but kind of the problem with frequent bannings is, are they going to stay consistent? So who becomes, they get to become judge, jury, and executioner, but is Wizards always the right entity to do so, is my kind of, my fear with this latest banning.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you look at the rules committee for Commander, some people would say that they, Wizards should be controlling that. So I guess you can argue both ways. I don't know what the right answer is for that, but I think somebody needs to take control of it as meaning a committee as opposed to just Wizards of the Coast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, that's what I wish there was a watch list, and maybe that's where they need to be. Maybe they need to actually include their player base in these decisions, because sometimes mommy doesn't know best. I guess would be the expression. And that's been, I guess that's been if you look back to my history on my channel, that's been my issue with Wizards. You can take any topic. You can take the reprints. You can take the not communicating, the amount of product that keeps ending up in Walmart, or, that was our whole last video was on. You can take all of these things, and all of them can really be boiled down to just kind of the lack of participation and communication that Wizards has with the community. So, and here's another issue I always have, is they seem to listen to very specific portions of the community. Like, I think even some of these might have more to do with particular, the only things I can think about is there were some very vocal pros saying that if energy get bans, ramming up ruins would be, who was it that someone replied to one of my Twitter with one of the pros tweets that if energy gets, Attuned Aether gets banned, it will all be ramming up. So then Wizards just like hyper focuses on their competitive crowd, or their Eric Frolics, or if we can take kind of the social justice, they hyper focus on that end of it, and don't listen to the rest of the 80%, 85, 90% of the community. That's kind of my issue going forward. So going back to the ban list, I'm scared with this. I don't think they can do another banning. Like, they have to pick like their strategic places to make the banning, and I'd rather play Teamer and Ramen Up all day long than have to deal with Approach or Black Blue Control for the next 3 months.
Yeah, I think I'd actually I do think they will do a banning if they feel like it's necessary. I don't think they're going to hold back. This banning in itself, I think, puts it in the forefront in my eyes as a player, that they're doing what they set out to do, what they said they were going to do. The last banning is look at Standard in a much more focused lens, and I think this banning here tells me that they are. Albeit, I think they need to handle the bannings a little bit more appropriately, but I think in the same aspect, I think they're at least trying.
Yeah, and again, I'm all for more bannings. I'm all for less bannings. I think that My issue is just transparency. Let's get that watch list going. Let's get that community discussion going. Let's get let's free the information back to the Goldfishes and the Star City games, and give all the players enough information to make those appropriate decisions going forward. Investment decisions, play decisions. I know we're going to hear a lot of people just crying bloody murder that their deck is now ruined. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it is what it is, though. I mean, people have to know that this had been coming. Like, I kind of figured this was coming.
Yeah, but,
you know.
But did they? Because, like I said, there have been standards in the past that they didn't do anything.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, based on what they said before, like, I took what their last banning and in their article when they talked about bannings, I took it to heart. I wanted to believe them to say that, hey, they're telling us they're going to look much harder. So I'm going to believe it until they prove me wrong. And so far, they haven't proved us wrong that they're looking at it much closer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you what, though. You talk about the watch list. You know, the first card that I want to put on the watch list is Blood Sun.
Blood Sun? Just to see if it's another unfun card to deal with. Well, first of all, they should just ban that card for the bad name. Because there's party foul number 1. Oh, we got Blood Moon. What should we call this? Blood Sun.
Oh man, when I saw that card, I'm like, oh, Wizards.
Yeah.
Oh, Wizards.
That was. Well, I guess we've been going on stream for an hour now. Speaking of ban lists, I guess we can turn it over to anyone have some Q&As, questions for Chris or myself. This is supposed to be a spotlight on Chris's channel. Any upcoming videos you have planned, or any direction you're going to take your channel within 2018?
Yeah, so 2018 is going to be pretty big. We're going to focus on Standard a lot more. Actually getting another content creator on the channel who will be helping to make content for Standard. Kind of like podcast style, but we'll be taking things live once a month to kind of just talk to people and kind of give people's reactions to things and sort of just discuss the Standard format. I hate to say that I'm going to be reviewing products, but I'm going to be talking about products that I think are great. I have some Dex, DEX boxes that I'm going to be doing a video on that are just fantastic. They're superior boxes. I can't talk about them enough with my friends. So, and then beyond that, it's just the same old. I mean, I want to make more entertaining content. So some people don't like the whole scripted side of things, but I'm going to be doing some scripted stuff that I want to intentionally be funny.
Awesome. Well, if everyone definitely should go check out Chris's channel. Again, link in the description there. He puts out some phenomenal. I think he is grossly undersubbed. It's a crime. It's just YouTube's a bitch. That's the best way to describe it. The algorithm is not created equal. Some people hit the jackpot. Some people just put their heart and soul into content, and it's good content, and it just doesn't get anywhere. And I felt that frustration in the last 6 months, even with my channel. I was stuck at the same sub number, and my view counts just continue going lower and lower no matter what I did. And it was kind of funny. I'd do this dumb rant video and it'd get 8,000 views. No effort put into it. And then I'd spend all day researching the topic, putting out, editing the video, and it'd peter off at 1,000 views. I'm like, screw this crap. I'm just gonna be a drama channel. So that's, I think, what's kind of happened. Whenever you joined or something with the tag, but it's criminally undersubbed. So if you're looking for some very quality content, definitely in the description. Go check it out. Great. If you want good interviews too, he does a lot better job than I do, just rambling with my poor guests here that just get overtalked and can't follow with my train of thought.
Speaking of interviews, I wanna ask you this on air now. I'm trying to get a very fun 4-way interview with me, you, MTG Purple.
Purple's still on here.
And I don't know if he's still on here. I asked him about it. He said he's interested. And then Desolator, I thought this would be like a very just it'd be obnoxiously fun to do and talk about nothing but hilarious stuff. So we could talk about that more later, but that's I want to do some like crazy fun interviews this year, because I find that some of the serious ones that I'm doing is not getting the views that I want. So I feel like I have to do some crazy fun stuff. But there was a few questions that I saw. So I've seen a lot of like questions about life gain decks. You know, if life gain decks are going to be a thing.
Well, it's got one of their hardest things to deal with in their ban. So
yeah. So I think so beyond the pre-releases, and I'm looking towards GP&D for doing my homework. I have a whole guide that I'm writing on cards I like for this meta, but I think life gain is going to be good because vampires is going to be a big thing. I think vampires really got the cards it needed to take it to the next level. That's just my opinion.
And
what do you think?
Well, it's one of them that can actually, I'm pulling up Fumigate. It's one of the archetypes that I think actually can survive Fumigate because it does have some renewable resources. If they go a Ketra's Monument, that's a renewable resource. They have that. They still have the Lord that can pump out another token. They still have Legion's Landing. They also do have Dusk Dawn. They can. Isn't it called Dusk Dawn?
Dusk Dawn.
It brings them back. So it's
yeah. Go ahead.
The other ones, Merfolk. Merfolk, I think, is also something that it actually did get a 5-0 finish the day it was legal. So that's promising for Merfolk for a tempo-based shell. They have all the pieces there. As far as what I guess there's a question here of what I'm brewing. I did with Brewmaster Tyler. We talked about a bunch of things we were working on. The whole big if is I think you're going to have a deck that can compete with Black Blue Control. If it's going to be the new kind of the bully on campus, and so it's going to hyper focus people at the start to be aggressive enough or have enough value to push through it. So I personally am looking at Bantu's Monument. That's the card I keep. I think we finally have enough black cards that are actually worthwhile to utilize that and have that kind of be the drain. We have Gaunty, we have Hostage Taker, we have Ravenous Chupacabra, we have the new 1/1 draw card Elvish Visionary for black for vampires. You can build an entire deck that can have its cost reduced by Bantu's Monument, and B, replace itself so that the 1 damage, 1 life is actually relevant. So you're not just stuck with something on board that didn't get any value. So between Gaunty, Hostage Taker, Scarab God, there's just tons and tons of cards that I also think my Marinate Master deck is in a good place. It depends on how much the new card that hoses graveyards is actually going to hose graveyards. So we'll see. I think actually the getting rid of Ramanup Ramanup especially makes the Scavenger Grounds a lot worse. There's one less deck that's gonna be running it for sure. But
yeah. And there was another question here.
Well, Chad says, "Are you excited or why are you excited to start a card shop, or are you going to start? Why do you want to open a card shop?"
Yeah. So, funny story behind that. I've been wanting to open a store for many years, and I'm finally working towards it. There's some other things behind the scenes though that are going to be that. We've talked about it briefly, but
You're working on that, by the way. I'm itching for it.
Yeah, it's we actually I have the timeline down, so we'll talk about that later. But the card shop is just one small piece of a bigger thing that I want to create. But I want to start bringing back, and some stores I know around me are finally starting to do this. But I want to bring back juniors competitions and really become try to just grow new Magic players, because there's a sector of Magic
about that.
Do you?
So
cool.
Well, okay, so yeah, because this goes with it. I hope maybe you should try what I'm doing here. I actually have a video. It's even titled. What did I title it? Something on the lines the Wizard of the Coast is terrible at community building or something like that, or pathetic. That's what it was. We have high schools I need to dig up my old paper that I wrote for English 2020 back when I was in high school or in college. I wrote a paper on Gurr. A little bit of history on Gurr. Gurr was the first professional gamer to make $100,000. So at the time, I was super excited. Now we have Magic players that have made $100,000, but this was professional gamer. He's a StarCraft player from Canada, first one to make $100,000. And I wrote a paper on but he ended up leaving gaming to get a real job. I mean, if you made $100,000, isn't that a real job? Like at that point, isn't that something you should be pursuing? Because that's some good money. And I wrote a paper on how Korean culture celebrated gamers. Their Boxer was a huge celebrity. They had him on their versions of soap operas. Huge, like he was the heart tease for all the little Korean girls. They all wanted to date a StarCraft player. And it was funny how we compare cultures, and gamers were typically looked down upon, and it was a bad thing. Like, no one's like, why waste your time? I remember when in my Mormon religion, we have these things called general conferences. They're the most boring thing you can imagine. It's 3 hours, or is it 2 or 3 hour blocks of going and listening to the leaders. They give these big conferences. And I remember right before I think I was 18 at the time, they had this big spiel on why you waste your time playing video games. Like, God doesn't care how many zombies you kill, was like this whole thing. And whereas in the same breath, this is my Mormon culture loves basketball and loves football, and they really celebritize. In fact, Steve Young, there's controversy around Steve Young because Steve Young didn't have to serve a mission because they thought what he was doing was just better exposure than what a mission would do. So he got a pass. He didn't have to do it. And so it's just growing up is like why is gaming being crapped on, whereas sports, which is literally the same thing, right? Is there a difference? Can someone please explain to me the merits of sports versus the merits of video games, especially Magic? Magic is just all problem solving. It's problem solving with art and flavor text. That's literally what it is. And it's anyone that I've experienced that gets good at Magic can kind of use that experience in other facets of their life. And so anyway, that's my whole. I'm trying to make this spiel to get the high schools involved. We have chess clubs in almost every high school. Even small high schools, and chess is boring. Sorry for you chess players. I don't like chess. I find it too one-dimensional compared to other games that, like Magic, you basically rearrange the battlefield every game you play. Anyway, but so what we're doing here is we're going to try to get the high schools involved and try to get this competition happening between all the high schools in our area. And then go from there and try to create teams. And I think that's what Magic is missing at a local level. If you were to say, look at any other professional circuit, look at even the first-person shooters that can be played solo, or even Dota, which can be played solo. But most of the ones that have been very successful are team-oriented. And I think Magic could easily, even though you play 1 versus 1, can still easily be team-oriented. Coming from a swim background, swimming was not even 1 versus 1. Swimming is 1 versus no one. It was 1 versus yourself. You could literally ignore the rest of your people. You did have to race against people, but they couldn't affect you. So, but it was still a team sport. And how many people would actually join or would have pursued swimming if there wasn't a team associated with it? So anyway, now that I've interrupted you with your train of thought, that's what I think that the community level, that's what we need. We need more people organizing local level, not only tournaments, but reasons for people for showing up. Because right now there's a huge gap between Pro Tour and then what?
I mean, really, it's GPs or Pro Tour. I mean, that's what it is.
Well, GPs really aren't the end all, though. It's like you can win one GP and that's just that. It doesn't really do anything. It's like there needs to be a professional circuit, more like, rather than just Grand Prix, where teams maybe would face teams. They're starting to go that direction. But even at a local level, you have Store Champion, Pro Tour.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's one of the things too. Like we, as a group, we have a group of friends of ours who have basically just dubbed ourselves a local team or a local group that we, for instance, going to GP Indy, we have 18 of us, so we have 6 teams going to GP Indy, and we're all in it together. So in other words, we're fact finding, we're getting info, and we share information all together as a group to play together. I mean, we're going to have our own individual teams, but at the same time, we're helping each other out
is it
as a
full-fledged,
team.
have you actually like signed up as a team? Because what's the format at Indie? Is it actually team or is it?
Yeah, it's team limited.
Oh, okay, so it actually is a team. Okay.
But it's teams of 3, and then excuse me, it's teams of 3, but like our whole like crew is like 18 of us that are going. We're going to be obviously sharing information all together of what's good and what's not, and like. So pro tour teams, they have that kind of thing, but we don't have that like local level. Like we don't influence that. And I think there's room for both local stores and just even region wide and certain regions for us to be able to do something like that. Not just Star City games and not just pastime events like the 10Ks and stuff like that. But I'm actually talking a local pro tour circuit kind of deal that really focuses on developing players of all ages.
We had one here in Utah. I'll have to look it up, and it was very successful. The player base died here in Utah. I think it's definitely. I think that even though GP attendance is up, I think at the local levels attendance is still way down. But in Utah, we actually had one until the stores started fighting with each other, and that kind of killed it. But it was pretty fun because each store kind of represented. You had a tournament at multiple tournaments at each store, and you got points at those stores, and then the money was kind of pooled for this like end of season tournament. And they were quite. It was a pretty robust little scene. Because especially here in Utah, it's just unfeasible to try to GP grind. Like I'll be going to Phoenix, probably going to Phoenix. I'm not sure. I haven't 100% pulled the trigger on it yet, but that's like a 10-hour drive for me. And then there's Denver, which is a 9-hour drive. LA, which is a 9-hour drive. Vegas is still a good 3-4 hours away from where I'm at, and Salt Lake's a good 2-3 hours from where I'm at. So it's just unfeasible to do these little Grand Prix. But if Wizards would actually at the local level organize these things, I think they could have a very successful. I hate the direction that Chris Cox has taken Magic. I think it's going to backfire, and I think it's going to backfire in an epic way. And they're going to have to go back to the drawing board once Arena fails. So I hope that they'll actually do more of this, focus on the paper aspect, the community building aspect, and utilize the local game stores. They're a huge resource.
I think you're right. I just don't think they're gonna do it. I think the problem is now that they're own, because of the Hasbro influence, right? Like the Hasbro seats at the table want money, and that's kind of that's just the unfortunate thing that we're going to have to just deal with. There's nothing else we can do about that until Hasbro sees the issue that it's causing and the bottom line, which I don't know if that will happen. I mean, it'll be a wait and see kind of thing. I hope the eventual is it hurts the bottom line, because then it goes back to they're going to start backstepping, but then are people going to jump back on board? Like for instance, let's just say you decided to back out and say I'm not doing this whole Magic thing anymore in my store. I'm not saying you're going to, but let's just say for instance it gets so bad you're like, I'm not going to do this again. Would you jump back on and say Wizards comes back and says, hey, we're going to fix things. Let's work together. I think that that's I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's where they're going to have some issues if they let it go too far.
Yeah, and I think that their ivory tower is exactly what Rudy likes to call it. I think there's some pretty neat little other hard card games that are trying to take some of their space over, which they got to be careful with. There's the perfect storm. I think that if Arena isn't everything they think it's going to be, that's going to be a lot of wasted time and resources that could have been going into not only protecting their share but expanding their share, which is kind of sad. Like that's been again my issue since the 5 years I've been running this YouTube channel. It's just kind of the tone deafness of Wizards.
Yeah, but and I think and then there's the whole social side of things that they're listening to, which let's not get into that. But they're listening. I think in certain instances they're listening to the wrong people. Like they're letting the wrong people influence decisions they're making, which I think is hurting the brand.
So you gonna go to Jeremy's band tour or band pre? Got your tickets for that?
I'm gonna stop by. I want to go say hi to Jeremy and just I mean, I'm gonna be competing in the GP, so I'm not gonna be hanging around, but I'll definitely be stopping by and saying hello to Jeremy and just showing my support for his cause. I mean, the whole this whole thing about people fighting and this and that and the other thing. I just think it's a little frustrating. As a player, it really puts a black eye on something I love to do. And then it puts a wedge in between me as a content creator and somebody who likes many people that are involved with this. Makes me want to makes me choose almost, and which I think is another frustrating part of this whole thing. And I am sure you're part of that same feeling right now. It's like putting that wedge in. Yes, Desolator. I see your messages. But you know what I'm saying, and you get it. It's just the whole thing just sucks overall.
Yeah. Yep. I wish I could join you guys in Indianapolis. I know that the buy my plane ticket from Jeremy was legit. However, I don't have enough time to prepare for that. I can't, even though I'm a single person, I can't upend my life on a whim. For me to get an airport takes, minimum of 3 hours. So driving to an airport, I gotta figure out where to park my car, and too early for that. So I don't know. If Jeremy's interested in flying to Phoenix, that's the next GP I'll be going to. But yeah, Indianapolis that's a long ways away from my neck of the woods.
Are you going to Vegas this year?
Yeah. Well, Vegas is easy for me. I would consider Vegas the local tournament, especially since my parents live in the halfway point, and I have to have an excuse every now and again to visit them anyway. So I'll go down a day early, spend some time with my parents, then go to Vegas, then on the way back spend some more time with the parents, and then So that one's very easy. Vegas is very doable. So I'll be there. Cool. What is Vegas this time?
It is June.
It's a big event again too, isn't it? Isn't it like a 3-day?
Yeah, it's modern standard, so they're doing 2 in a row. So it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday. Yeah, so it's Wednesday through the weekend.
Yeah, I'll definitely do Vegas. I'll probably do Denver in October as well. Isn't that when it is? Thank God they're finally doing it they keep scheduling Denver in the middle of winter, and they obviously don't know what it's I-70 or I-80 become. Like I worked for a shipping company. Those two roads get closed very often. And that was one of the times we were trying to go to GP Denver. We couldn't make it. It was closed. Like there's no way for us to drive there. And the flights are miserable too, because they'll get Denver's notorious, and same as Salt Lake, is notorious for being delayed and stuff like that. And they keep scheduling GP Denver in like January, and we think it's because the WotC higher up want to ski or something, which they're unrealistic, because Denver's actually quite far from the ski resorts.
Yeah.
They just think Denver, but Denver's on the basically the very last part of the Rockies. Is right after Denver is what do they call that? The flat farmlands of the Midwest, or the whatever they all call Kansas and Iowa, and all the Nebraska. So it's just flat beyond flat. So I used to live
Yeah.
in that area, so I know exactly what. But I think it's always
Oh,
funny
okay.
when people are like, we can go ski, and it's like, geez, that's an hour away. You're going to be driving forever to go up in the ski resort. So anyway.
October 12th through the 14th in Denver.
Yeah, so I'll probably, who knows, I might get down to, if there's one in like Southern California, those are usually pretty easy, or maybe I can just fly to one if there's enough. Eventually I want to take this whole YouTube thing seriously and actually start, traveling. And I one of these days I want a GP grind. I think this last experiment with trying to break the meta was a good confidence booster, because it didn't take me long to start getting the 4-1 finishes. There are plenty of times that I was in the 70% win percentage on
Nice.
MTGO is the kind of the hallmark of competition too. I think that you can. I remember when I looked at my last 20 matches and found like 3 pro players, like people that were silver above, and then there was at least like a dozen, well, not a dozen, but at least like 7 or 8 what you consider like semi-professional, where Magic was there living in that group of. I mean, so that's even better than you'll get a GP a lot of times until you're in day 2 at the higher up scene. So Magic Online competition, if you're looking to get better at Magic, is definitely a good tool.
Yeah, so I've been told plenty of times by Travis Wu and Ben Friedman and Adam Yurchek and a lot of the pros that I've interacted with, that MTGO is where it's at when it comes to getting better, because it's actually kind of it's harder than the Pro Tour. Yeah,
well, there's a lot of good players that are kind of in the same position like I am, where it's just MTGO is more feasible, and you never know where their skill. Reed Duke came from MTGO, and I would still think that he is he still on? He was number 1 there for a little bit for this season.
I think he's definitely top 5 this season. I think he fell off. Yeah, I think he fell off slightly, but he's But like Jabberwocky is now really hitting GPs even harder.
MTGO,
so
that same thing, Prodigy there.
Yep.
So a lot of these people like the Batutinas have been even like they've been beating pros forever on MTGO, and that's a name that I go up against a ton. A lot of these Brazilian professional MTGOers and yeah, you're a lot of European players too. It's just unfeasible again to try to even get on a pro tour. It's tough. Like the ways you qualify is very, very awkward for the rural areas or people that aren't in big or either very, very West Coast or very, very East Coast, because there's a lot of traveling cost associated with it, and you have to have a good bankroll to begin with. Or not even that, even the PTQ circuit. For me, it's very unfeasible with PTQs. A lot of the stores around me have dropped the PPTQs because they just had such dismal turnout rates. I mean, you'd get like 14 people showing up to them. And then it's like, well, the problem with us is it's always held in Denver. Denver's not local. Denver is far away. If they were to kind of have this for the same, like if they were to say that everyone in the New England area had to, what's 8 hours away from New York? I mean, at that point, you're in like, okay, everyone in Pittsburgh has to drive to New York City. That's kind of how it'd be. Or so there's a lot better of the regional areas. I think it's easier for them to travel than it is for us. So it just became unfeasible for you had to win a PPTQ, and then what? You have to top 8 a PTQ to get a Pro Tour invite. That's how they still do it, or is it top 4?
No, it's top 2. Top 2.
Is it top 2 for a PTQ now? That was top 4.
Top 2.
Yeah.
And then and then if you top 8 a GP.
Yeah.
If you top 8 a GP, you get an invite.
Yeah, and you can get on points too. You can get silver with enough GP finishes. So if you theoretically day 2 enough GPs, you can get there as well. But that's very, very tough to do.
And super expensive to do.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
like,
well, look at the prices now. $70 for entry fee for.
Oh yeah, don't get me started on that.
You can blame the judges for
Oh,
that because they had
man.
to actually start playing the judges. That's what I was told was the big hike. So everyone was bitching about Channel Fireball. Like, well, you got to pay now. Used to be able to print money for our, judges, but
Yeah. I mean, like $80 to register for GP was a little, and it's a team event, so you have to have 3 on your team. So your team is like 240, like what, 8, 16, 20, $240 for a team, which is going to probably have, several thousand teams. It's just, it's a lot of money. It's just a lot of money. And for what you get, I mean,
that used to be the thing. When I remember if it was the first GP Vegas everyone was whining about, but I think it was a $60 entry fee. Maybe it's $40. But you got 6 packs of Modern Masters plus a pack of Modern Masters just for showing up in there. At least a pack for their like what do they call that? Pack per win. Like if you win, you get a pack, and if you shuffle it up and play with your pack, and then if you win, you get another pack and show. So you at least got and the playmat was worth $60, and the promo was worth about 15, I think, at the time. So I remember standing in line for the GP Vegas, getting my sort of I think it was a sort of Fire and Ice playmat, immediately going to a vendor the very first stop and selling it for $60. So I made back my entry fee. Now I hear playmats are, if you want one, is going to be an additional cost.
Yep.
So if you even take you can a $3, it costs them like $3 to produce those too, and they're getting cheap. Those vendors. The
way they're working it for indie was you get one. They're producing 3 playmats. Okay, you get one, and then you can if you want to add on $15 for another one, or you could buy all 3 for another $40. It's just like, yeah, okay, fine.
You can buy a playmat for $40. Wow, yeah, that's an insane little profit margin if they're making them mass. Like the more playmats you make in one go, like the very first time I did an order of 100 playmats. Like playmats can be expensive. They cost me about $25, I think, to produce just a regular one, if it's just a one-off. But if you get up into the even into the hundreds, you can get them down to like $3 a piece, and so you can that's insane profit margin at that point. That's why it was so playmats used to be so easy just to give out, because people valued them for a lot when they were very, very easy to produce, compared to other products like sleeves are a bitch. I think even deck boxes at least have some special machines that have to produce them, compared to something that's very been around since the age of computers. They've been able to create playmat like materials. It's basically a mouse pad. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's only going to go up more. I mean, like, they want to get as much money as possible now. I mean, that is what it is.
Well, I guess that's another beef, that the monopoly of giving it all to Channel Fireball, I think, is a little bit dangerous too. As much as I don't like Star City Games as a company, they used to put on some pretty good GPs, and at least what that does is it always has the threat of, hey, I'm going to do one better than you did, so you have to up your game. Competition's great. When the least amount of people competing for anything is going to create a worse product in the end. So. Yeah.
And, I mean, I've done a Star City Games Open now, and that was just run beautifully. Like, I mean, it's probably one of the best large Magic tournaments I've been to, as far as how it was run.
Yeah, that's all the Star City events I've ever been to have been very well run as well. And there was one of them that had major issues, and they were able to rebound from it quite quickly. So people are talking about Pauper in the comment section. Would you be up for a Pauper GP?
So I haven't dipped my toe in a Pauper yet, but if they did a Pauper GP, absolutely I'd go do it, because I think it'd be kind of fun. I mean, it's something different. It's a whole different challenge. But unfortunately, I just don't see them doing one anytime soon.
Did you see that 2 Pauper decks today shot above $100?
No way. Which ones?
A lot of them that use Gush or Circular Logic. Those are 2 cards that have spiked up recently.
So it's a good thing I bought into those. I I watched your market video and followed some advice there.
I'm the worst practicer of what I preach. Like I'm always like, I'll get around to it. Finance works the exact same way that everything else does in my life. Out of sight, out of mind. When I'm focused on it, I'm pretty good at it. When I'm, oh, thank God today though. I woke up in a panic today because of the amount of spell callers I own, and it's just been tanking on MTGO. And I thought for sure it was gonna be on the curated list today, and it's not. So whew, I'm in good shape there. Thought I converted when I was gonna sell out of MTGO. I converted all into spell quellers. So I wanted to do one more double up, and it was looking good. Spellcaller was, I'll throw it up for everyone here, and it was looking good. And I haven't really done much speculation in MTGO for a while, so I wanted to get back into it. And so it did. This was when I started buying into it. It was right here, and bought it all the way to about $5.85 a piece, and then it shot up to $8. I'm like, yes, 11. I'm selling out, and then boom, it dipped down into nothing. But this right here, for everyone that just wants a little bit of finance tip. The spell queller drop, this is just everyone sinking their money into Rivals of Ixalan. How bots work on MTGO, if they don't sell a card in a specific amount of time, they will decrease it by like 5 cents or a percentage. And then what that does is it causes like this chain reaction of a price fall when you get these sort of, most releases you'll actually see these sort of things happen with modern staples. They'll hit their highs right before the hype of the new release comes, and then they'll tank because resources have to go somewhere, and if they're not going towards buying one thing, they're going to go buying towards another thing. So yep, this is still a good time for anyone that wants to get into spell queller, and help me out too, because the more you buy, the more help let's go the other way. But anyway, so Popper still, there's some great targets with Popper. Gosh, there's still, what was one I was looking at today? I like the Cold Snap card, the Martyr of Ash. This one's a good one. Yeah. If you guys don't have a playset of this one, Martyr of Ashes. This one looks good because it's usually a 4 of in burn. One of their tricky matchups is elves, and so the Martyr of Ashes is a great way to kind of combat the elves. Some of the elf cards have already got, did Spider Silk Armor already go up? Because this one, a lot of times, if you can see some of the trends from on him, yeah, it's already gone up. But see how it's $9 on MTGO, $9 for Spider Silk Armor. This is just because Mercadian Mask was such a dismally low supply on MTGO that it's this is rarer than a mythic. But this is Elf's way of actually dealing with sweepers. 1-mana sleepers like Electricities is if they can get Spider Silk Armors out and protect some of their key pieces. And so in paper, this is still another card that could easily go up. Because if you look at other cards from Mercadian Mask, I mean, this is the other commons. Yep, Gush has gone up to $6.25. What's the other? Some of the other ones from these time periods, like what's the card? Ristic Study type cards. That's very similar to the amount of supply out there. These are going to get eaten up very, very quickly. So there's a lot of these sort of cards that you have to find. Don't be afraid of sideboard cards. There is people need the exact amount of cards and usually sideboard cards have a lot more playability than you think because they go in multiple sideboard cards. So there are a lot of them that still look very interesting. I'm even thinking that when is about the time where Dark Ascension becomes an old enough set that they're hard to come across, because my store doesn't have Dark Ascension because we started during Battle for Zendikar. The store before me started during Theros. So how many of these new local game stores that have a lot of bulk lying around only have bulk that goes back a certain amount? And so I'm thinking Dark Ascension might be the new, because Zendikar commons have already gone up. So yeah, keep your eye on some of these sets that don't seem old, but now in the scope of things are old. There's a lot of goodies here. Galvanic Blast is one I've been really keeping my eye on because it's a double dipper. Never had a reprint. Anything out of these Delver decks, a Scred, this could finally be Snow-Covered Island. Definitely keep your eye on Snow-Covered Island.
I think we're going to see some of those in 25 though. And that's the other thing I got coming up. I have a 3-video series on top 11 cards in Masters 25.
Hey, maybe we'll have to do a collab video on it too, because I also have some picks for. I want to do some speculation. I think this is going to be the iconic Masters. So what I mean by that is we're actually going to get iconic cards.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
They just mislabeled.
Yeah, exactly, right? I'll tell you what, though, getting back to Gush, what you were talking about Gush, I went to go look at my TCG player. I bought 32 Gushes for 689. So yeah, I bought into those at the right time. Thank you, sir.
Well, they're dipping on Jace versus Chandra, so they did spike back up, and people are adding some more low. So what you're going to see in the market trend, though, is you're going to see these ups and downs. So people will release all their stock once it gets up to a certain point and sell out, and then it'll price correct and reprice correct. But Gush is definitely one that has some very dismal amounts of supply out there, because all it was the Mercadian Masks as an uncommon, I believe. No, it was a common. Okay.
No, it was a common. Yeah.
Because I was thinking there's another thing you need to check on is this is one, if this ever comes back into Pauper, it fell out of favor. This used to be a big Pauper staple for a while, was the Brindle Shoat. Brindle Shoat actually has never been printed in quantities that would be considered lower than a mythic, is what I in paper. So Plane Chase 2012 uncommon. So first of all, these are funny because these are just there's no real when they put rarities on supplemental products, that's just for this, for what, like Ash Barons is another one. It doesn't mean anything. It could put it as a mythic. There's still the exact same amount of supply because there's one of in every one of the decks. So the Brindle Show, this used to be, there's been times where this has been a Pauper staple. And the whole reason it is even legal in Pauper is Pauper doesn't care about anything but MTGO. And so it was printed in Vintage Masters as a common, so therefore it's legal. And the only time it's ever been released in paper is in Plane Chase Anthologies and Plane Chase 2012. So this supply is dismally low. So I'm sure that if you were to scour over the Pauper meta, I'm sure you can find some interesting little targets, but it's best just to stay with the more stable. Like this seems to be Elves, Affinity, Burn, Delver, and Kudatha Boros, plus the Tron decks seem to be the rotating Pauper. I'd actually put Black-Blue Control in here and Stompy. That'd be the three, because Pauper's very interesting because when one becomes big, if you actually go back 2 months, Stompy was like, I think Stompy actually got up to 14 or 15% of the meta. So it's funny that nothing even eats up more than 10% in Pauper right now, which is a really, really healthy format in regards to at least diverse decks. But Stompy recently was the highest, and then Elves came and beat up Stompy. And then, because Stompy's really good against Delver, and Delver's really good against Control. And Control is really good against when Elves comes into play, or other ones that where their board sweepers can beat them up, or Affinity. So people are actually expecting that Control is going to make a resurgence. You actually look back in the last few. Again, everything is so convoluted because they hide information, but you can see a black-blue deck, a black-blue deck, a black-blue deck. Basically every day has one in the top finish. So it's probably on its way back up. This kind of these black-blue Control, Muldrifter type Control decks. But anyway, yeah, there's still some money to be made in Pauper. There's still some things that stick out. Chittering Rats, there's another one. This has never had a reprint at all.
Chittering Rats,
45
man.
cents.
That's man. Some of these cards, man, I go back to thinking about Brainstorm and Sakatog and all these other ones. I'm like, man, I miss those days of Magic.
Yeah.
Like the old school Magic.
You miss Sakatog? You definitely are a monster. Oh god, talking about terrible standard formats. It's funny. It's one of them I actually did play in. I've had a lot of breaks in between, but I played Frog in the Blender when Sakatog was a thing, and that was a really solid. I think there's 3 decks back then that were competitive. Maybe there was. I can't remember a white deck. Was there a white deck that was actually decent in that time period?
I think so, but my memory definitely does not serve me well on that.
Sakatog, I believe, was 7 out of 8 were in the Pro Tour. Were Sakatog, and the other one was just a green-blue, very similar version with Circular Logic and the Madness mechanic really being utilized. But yeah.
So I just saw a question up here that Desolator asked.
Sure.
Will Masters 25 have individual commander-only commanders? I'll let you answer that
Like
first.
new printings? What do you mean?
Now, maybe like reprints of like, wait,
From the
I
from
don't
the
know what
commander
this means.
sets? I don't know. They say they need to release a little more information on exactly. I think are they focusing on sets or focusing on just Magic's history? Because they could easily put like a Kali the Vast type card in there or a an Animar. That's a way for them to throw value in it. Do you know I would absolutely love a kind of Eternal Masters type set that utilized a lot of cards from Commander, because that's one of the problems with some of these cards have been printed. Think about Brea. And yes, you do get the experience out of Cube, but think if you were to be able to draft Brea, like in a draftable set, just some of the
Okay,
synergies of those.
here's a clarifying statement. The front commanders that have only been printed in commander decks. Like, so, Atraxa, Brea, stuff like that. Like, so
Well,
the ones that only been printed.
I don't, I don't think so. I think that this set personally is going to be focused on sets,
Yeah.
and there's just
I,
so much that, but you never know. Wizards threw a fastball at us with Iconic being basically commander staples that needed reprinted and modern cards that had high price tags but no real supply. So
yeah.
that was Iconic Masters.
It's iconically devastating, to be honest. Like, I didn't understand some of the stupid choices they made with some of these cards. It just was mind boggling. I'm just like, how in the world is this Iconic Masters,
they didn't
man?
have like someone they didn't have an editor, I guess. There's a better word for that. Someone overseeing it saying, like, people looked at Horizon Canopy, or not Horizon Canopy, Grove of the Burn Rules. I'm like, oh, we got to put that in. $80 card, $90 card. There was at a point where Grove was pushing to be the most expensive card in Modern. So like, yeah, we'll throw that in there. It will sell sets. But the whole reasoning behind why it's such it's back to this card. It's the however you spell Obliette. Oblava. I can never. Let's go back to the Chittering Rats deck. That's gotta be in the same. What's that enchantment that was printed out of? I can't even find it. Anyway, it's basically Banishing Light, is what it is for black, but it was printed out of Arabian. There we go. Hey, there. I am going to. Oh, you. Ha, that's why I'm not finding it. There, Obliette. There we go. This card is an expensive little common, $26.25. This must see play like crazy. Everyone must want this card. No, it's a wonder two of in most pauper decks that use it. The whole reason it's $26, it's got a dismal supply. So it's kind of the same thing with Grove. They got lucky with Horizon Canopy. They got insanely lucky that it ended up hitting a bunch of homes the same time Iconic Masters came out. Otherwise, that would have been another rare that just got completely destroyed. So the only thing that it really had going for it was Vile and Cryptic Command and Thoughtseize, which Thoughtseize is still trying to recover from the mass supply that Theros had. And they're probably going to reprint it from the next Modern Master set, other than I have heard a rumor that the new Modern Masters are not going to care about the sets going forward. I don't know where I heard that little rumor, but you know how the last one was focused on, even some of the mechanics was focused on Return to Ravnica and Innistrad.
Yeah.
And then the one before that was kind of focused on Zendikar or where'd it go to? Wherever it went, Scars Meriton and Zendikar, and the one before that. Yeah, so I've heard they're discontinuing that because they rightfully show if they do that, they can't chuck in enough value that needs to happen, that they need to go back. But Iconic Masters just seemed like a something they threw out very quickly just to try to elevate some of the price tags of Modern. And you can have people like Turner Community College and some of these other people to blame for that, because they were the ones calling for reprint all day long. They were just smashing that drum. We need reprints, and those same people now are crying about reprints, which, like I've always said, let's be cautious here. If you're going to attack anything in Modern, attack the mana base. Reprint the mana base to Oblivion. Then that's a lot easier for people to, to stabilize prices and things like that. But
I was really surprised that the Scars mana base didn't make it in Iconic Masters, because there's a lot of people that like playing those lands.
Yeah,
like
it's
Scars or Lorwyn or any of those. Like
Scars is weird because it's got very name specific lands. They're gonna be hard to reprint in standard sets.
yeah, Lorwyn actually might be able to be printed in a standard set.
Yeah, those are pretty easy. I don't think anything had very specific. Maybe there's a couple of them, but there are some that you can kind of finagle to put into the lore. But Scars like Black Cleave Cliffs, that's a very specific, or Razor Verge Thicket, very, very specific names to them. Whereas the Kaladesh ones are very kind of ambiguous. They could go in anything. So
yeah. So one last thing that I want to ask you. Actually, here I have a question. Core set 2019. So this kind of got pushed by the wayside. Didn't really get talked about.
Yeah, well, didn't they announce something with that today that they pushed it back?
Yeah, no, they pushed it. They pushed it up.
They pushed it up.
Yeah. So they're going to release it the week of July 13th instead of July 20th. So a week earlier.
All right, found it. A week earlier, July 13th.
What do you make
July
of that?
20th.
Like, I don't understand why. So
what are they releasing in the where's products? Featured releases. Let's see. Where is there's a WPN page where you can look at all that's coming out. We usually print it off and put it on our front counter. I wonder what's coming out. They're getting blasted for, too many things coming out at once. Maybe that's what they're trying to do.
But then I'm curious why they would do it sooner. Like, it's only 1 week, so it's not a huge deal. But I was like, why move it a week? I was just confused. Unless they're trying to align tournament schedules. But I didn't know if they gave stores any explanation for that. I know it's way
maybe
out.
I'll have to check the WPN page. Let me look real quick over here. See if I can find any information. That's been funny to read too. The WPN page has been talk about a mass. Once you get a store, definitely join this. This is where they're supposed to communicate with stores, but it's just been a shit show for the past like 3 or 4 months. I feel so sorry for the guy that runs it because all it is just negativity after negativity. Man, I can't find the stupid thing.
Okay, so I see in the chat Pro Tour. So let me look at the Pro Tour schedule.
Yeah, there's no chatter right here on. I haven't seen any specific announcements to local game stores. Yeah, everyone's still talking about Ixalan and the new. Okay, 4 cards banned standard.
No, because so Pro Tour Dominaria happens June 1st to the 3rd, and then 25th anniversary is August 3rd and 5th. So it has nothing to do with the Pro Tour. And they said they're not changing anything with the Pro Tour schedule. So, it's just interesting. It was nothing like weird, but that one just kind of like slipped underneath the radar that they changed the date, and I was just like, that's kind of funny.
I'm surprised they haven't put thing on the Wizards Play Network because I think this is definitely something stores need to adjust.
Yeah, because like you're, I mean, if I don't know how far in advance you guys, set up and schedule your events, but I know like the store by me already has that stuff in their books, like what they need to account for. Yeah. So I just thought it was funny.
Yeah, distributors too. That's a there's no holidays reasoning that they'd be. Yeah. No. Oh wow. The pre-release though, that pushes the pre-release near July 4th.
Yeah.
Ugh. When is July 4th hit? Oh yeah. That could actually screw our pre-release. See, Wizards keeps thinking that putting things near holidays is a good thing, and at least for me and everything I've ever been, even when I lived up north in Salt Lake, whenever they put anything near a holiday, it was dismal. Like the turn.
Well, I'll be doing this pre-release now on vacation as opposed to doing it when I come back from vacation.
Yeah, it could screw up people like that are the more hardcore people. Store owners too, the scheduling with that kind of stuff. Like we try not to be out of town for a pre-release because of course we need as much manpower as possible. That's our busy weeks, so that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know if they're. I'll keep you updated if I hear anything for the reasoning for that. But yeah. Anywho,
how long have we been streaming now?
Almost 2 hours. So we want to wrap this up here since we're both getting a little distracted by stuff.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, first off, I want to say thank you very much for having me on your channel. It's always great to talk to you too. We always have great conversation as well. We sit here and ramble for 2 hours.
Yeah. Well, this is actually a short stream for me. Sometimes I'm on here for like 4 or 5. What was it, around 5 hours last time? And then I got right back on for another 2-hour one with someone else. But
jeez.
I've been enjoying these stream things just because there's little effort that needs to be done.
Yeah.
Less effort for something. And we had some pretty good. I think we were up to 180s at one point, I believe, on the watching, which is very high. That's another thing. The YouTube algorithm, I don't get it. Sometimes we're, I had like 30 the other day for a topic I thought would get a lot of people on here. And this one, where it was just kind of not a lot. It was planned a little more on Twitter than I usually do, but anywho, yeah, it's a YouTube algorithm's a bitch. Yeah. Speaking of which. Go help Chris out. Subscribe to his channel. He's definitely gets kicked in the nuts from the algorithm because his content is very, very, very good. And I appreciate all the work he does. And he's put his heart out there with like, you can go back to even his early videos. A lot of people start out a lot less professionally done videos than he does. So he found his niche pretty quickly, and it's good content.
Yeah, my first videos though, please don't watch those. Those are really bad.
Yeah.
But I mean, I leave them up there because I like to remind myself, like, I mean, it's only been a year, but I feel like I've come a long way in a year. I've done. I'm really, we're just trying to, do good content for the community as well as just develop what we're trying to do here. And that was one of the things that was hard in the beginning. I mean, I don't know how, like, when you started your channel, if you set out to, have any like goals for what you wanted to do. But it was like, I just started it because I liked the people in the community. I wanted to join the community, and I knew I liked to do videos, and I felt like I had a voice of some sort. So that's why I decided to do it.
Yeah, I think with me, I just think I kind of got lucky. First of all, I didn't for saying that I had a plan or thinking that I had a plan for anything is a huge overstatement, because I don't think I've ever planned anything in my life, including YouTube. Just kind of ended up happening. It was just a happy accident, and just kind of went with it after that. Picked up a sponsorship quite quickly out the gates, which I no longer have. So I'm itching to get a community built that we can actually start doing some neat little things, because I think 2017 was a huge dip, I think, for just, unless you were the tier 1 people on that already been the made it crowd, or the people that they were trying to push. So the small guys that were yay diversity's sake that Wizards was trying to pump up, and the people that already kind of made it in the big names. It was a good year for them, but it kept all the middle, like some of us old timers and some of the people trying to break out in the scene, kind of without a community. There really hasn't been a voice for the MTG YouTube community. So I'm hoping to get back to a lot more collaborations, and it's been looking good. There's been some newcomers. Been on a lot of streams lately. It's a lot of actually, I've had a pretty decent little subscriber growth in the past month, so it's looking up. So was there a new dice rule? Someone in the comment section, what do you think of the new dice rule? What's the new dice rule?
The new dice rule?
What's the new dice rule?
You can't use dice at tournaments anymore.
We can't use dice at tournaments anymore.
Supposedly, I haven't read all the way through it.
Wait, what?
Supposedly, that's
for what? For keeping track of things on your live total? Oh, okay. Well, no one. Does anyone have Pro Tours use those or anything? So no dice for
pen and paper. That's what I use.
So yeah. Well, you should, because pro tip: judge calls happen very often, and they will rule with the person that has dotted their T's or dotted their I's and crossed their T's. Because if you have something you can show the judge, say, hey, look, I put down damage here, and even if they're like incorrect, a lot of times, if it's hard to back up, the judge will just look at it and say, okay, well, we'll go by that. If the other one's trying to use dice, they won't go by that. So try not to use dice as tokens. Try not to use dice to represent anything. If that's a huge pet peeve of mine. If you were a token-based deck, god damn it, bring tokens. I hate it when. Well, and for all of you too, what's the other pet peeve? If the new Merfolk Lord is giving all of your creatures +1/+1, if you use a dice at my store, I will slap your hands. I'll do it because a dice is not for that. And it does come into play a lot. And then it happened to me in the pre-release that someone was using a dice and then they used Savage Stomp. And they, all of a sudden they had 2 dice on there. I'm like, no, this is messy. And then I was trying to add it up with, like, no, that doesn't do that. So do not use static effects as a dice. Sometimes what I'll do, like, I used to use a dice to count how many cards I had in a graveyard, just as a reminder. But, yeah, maybe they're cracking down on dice using for... representing things.
Yeah, and the token thing, using dice for tokens, that just bothers the crap out of me. Like, if you're gonna have a token deck, come on, just have the tokens.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and it's like I so many times I'll overlook, that there's 3 or 4 tokens out because it's one token with a dice on it, and I'm just like, when you're in the moment, you're just like looking at it, it's like, okay, I got 1, 2, 3, 4 creatures out, right? Like. It's just one of those things where, like, you can easily make the mistake of forgetting that there's 3 tokens instead of 1.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so probably the next time I talk to you, GP Indy will be over, and hopefully we'll top 8.
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, there we go. Maybe I'll be the one. Maybe you'll win it, and then I'll be the. Just remember the little guys. When you become famous, that's it.
Oh, geez. Oh, man. Well, thanks again for having me on your channel, man. I appreciate it. It was a great conversation and very, it was very. We planned this right with the whole banning announcement today.
Yep. So everyone get their brewers hats on. Try to brew a new meta, and we'll all, I guess, meet back and see what we can come up with. Everyone on the live stream, thank you for joining us. Again, go check out Chris's channel in Legendary Mana in the description, and go give him a sub. I guess we'll be closing streams, and I want to thank Chris for coming on for 2 hours of rambling with me. I know it can't be easy, and yeah, thanks a lot, Chris.
Thank you.